Do you need a lead-in? You're good to go? Okay, awesome. Good morning, everyone. We'll call this meeting to order. First things first, our legal notice. As information for our audience, if you're not satisfied with the decision made by the Metropolitan Board of Fair Commissioners today, you may appeal that decision by petitioning for a writ of cert with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of entry of the board's decision. To ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met, please be advised that you should contact your own independent legal counsel. All right, our minutes have been distributed. If we want to take a moment to take a look at those, let me know if there's a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. Excellent. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Moving on to public comment. Do we have anyone here for public comment today? All right, then we will move on to monthly reports. Satrice?
Good morning, everyone. The financial information presented today is preliminary, and all revenue and expenses for September 2021 may not have been recorded to the ledgers as of October 11, 2021, when this report was created. The preliminary actuals through September 2021 are as follows. Revenue, $250,800. Expenditures are around $339,753, resulting in a net loss of approximately $88,921. Depreciation expense is $0. So the total net loss is roughly $88,921. Below you will find an itemized list of our expenditures. Our top three expenses are payroll, utilities, and insurance and low cap. Payroll expense is approximately $137,100, which represents 40% of our total expenses. Utilities expense is $62,972, which is 19%. Insurance, permits, and low cap expense is $41,358, which is 12% of our total expenses. Last month, we anticipated collecting $80,700 in revenue. We received approximately $120,100 in revenue, largely due to revenue collected from Thrillville. For the month of October, our revenue projection is approximately $160,900. The month of October is historically our largest flea market, and we're excited to be utilizing our indoor facilities as well as our outdoor space. We anticipate 31% collection of revenue from flea market, 21% from parking, and 10% from Expo 3 for this month. On the agent report this month, we have $600 in outstanding invoices. The promoter has been invoiced, and we anticipate receipt of payment soon. I would like to inform the board the Metro Council has approved the $663,000 grant from CDBG, Community Development Block Grant for allowable costs related to the emergency homeless shelter held at the Fairgrounds. The grant will post this month and will be reflected in next month's financial report. This concludes the financial report. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Satrice. It's exciting to hear some good news. Do we have any questions from the board? Good to move on? Okay, then we will move on to Executive Director's report. Laura?
Hey, good morning. Alrighty, I have a few items that I just wanted to go over. The first one is I do want to recognize we had a very difficult month with some recent deaths in our Fairgrounds family, and I would like to just honor and remember Joe Patty and Megan Dice. Randy's here, and we wanted to send him love in our thoughts. That was a very significant loss for him and his family, as for, well, of course, us here. They were both very instrumental in what we do here in providing services to our event. So I just did want to recognize that and give our best to Randy, his wife Tammy, and Joe's wife Jennifer. With that, I wanted to just mention, and Bob is here as well, and I'm sure he can add some detail, but we are coming up on our biggest race weekend of our season, the All-American 400. This year, we are hosting on Wednesday, October 27th, the Hall of Fame, Speedway Hall of Fame banquet. Last year, it was much smaller because we were still in the midst of COVID, so we had it at Mr. Borchetta's venue, so it was much, much smaller. About 75 people were in attendance, and this year we are projecting that we could have about 300. So we are honoring 6 individuals this year, and I just wanted to read them for the record, as the Hall of Fame committee has worked really, really hard at identifying worthy recipients of that honor, and that is Benny Goodman and Mark Parrish, Bobby Seltzer, Fulton Stutz, and James and Wade Allen Buttry. And so the Buttry family, and I believe all of the drivers' families will be in attendance on that night, and we certainly encourage anyone who would like to buy tickets to please do so. It's going to be right here in this room, and it's going to be a really special night. So the doors open at 6:30, and dinner starts at 7:30 with the presentation starting at 8. I'd also like to mention we did have a race this past weekend that was kind of history making. Brittany Zamora, in our last race on Saturday night, was the first female winner of a premier division. She's 22 years old, and it was quite the race. It was neck and neck toward about the last half of the race, and she took over in lap 84, I believe, if I read the article that Mr. Menlin put together correctly, and she held out till lap 101. So it was definitely a history-making evening, and it was really fun to watch her celebrate her win. The All-American this year is the 37th running of the All-American, and it is in memory of Jillian Brown, and it's sponsored by U.S. Tank. Jillian was a 16-year-old girl who was tragically killed in a car accident last year. She is the daughter of the, I believe, founder of U.S. Tank Company, and they are sponsoring this race in her honor. And so we do want to recognize that as well. We've got some pretty big names that are going to be back for the All-American, helping us to celebrate by driving: Kenny Wallace and Ken Schrader. I don't know if Bob has any other secret announcements to make on if any other drivers are going to be here for that, but it's going to be a really exciting weekend. You're all invited, of course, if you would like to take a look at how the All-American is run. Certainly, we'd like to bring you into the infield and kind of show you the inner workings of, you know, what that looks like and what it all entails. But I do know that Bob, Scott, Randy, and their staff has really worked hard to make this a special week for our drivers and for our fans. So I want to thank them. And I think that's it-ish. I will be able to take over the next one too for events. Mr. Wallace is out of the office today, so sure. If it's okay with you, I can go ahead and do the event update. In your packets is a couple calendars. So you'll notice the October calendar is pretty full. It's been nice to have a full calendar for the first time since February of 2020. It's the first time that we have been able to fully open to the public indoors. We are looking forward to reopening the flea market in its entirety in October. And with that, I want to thank Marianne and Allison and Misty and Cetrice and Phyllis. They have done an incredible job at converting our software system this month. So we left UV term and went to market spread, and that has been a challenge. I know that our vendors have been asked to do some new things this month with entering their information and creating accounts so that we have a very, very accurate database going into the new system, and we want to thank them for their patience. We're certainly willing and able to help them establish those accounts. We know that not everyone may have robust technology at home, and so we're certainly able to help them. The office has done a great job at trying to communicate, reach out in various ways. We have sent mailings, letters. We've done texting on our mass text services. We have created flyers. Our vendor has created videos to explain how to log in. Those links have all been set out. It's on our website. So I think they have done a really great job at creating a variety of ways to communicate the changes to our vendors. And I'm sure that we will, make some improvements as we go on and get to know the system a little bit better. There's also a lot of behind the scenes, as you can imagine, setting up the accounting and all the financial processes and procedures that we have in place and embedding them into the software. And so, Cetrice has really spearheaded that, and I want to thank her for that. That is quite the task, as well as creating all the reports that we need to run. And as you can see by even, the more detail you're getting in the financial packet, that is a tribute to her efforts every month. So just wanted to talk about that a little bit. And the other event that we have probably gotten more inquiries about is, are we having Christmas Village? Yes, we are indeed having Christmas Village. We've had lots of planning meetings. They're very excited to come back. It will be very similar to what we had in 2019. We had only had one Christmas Village before we shut down. And so we had certainly learned some good lessons from that very large event that we will be making a few adjustments as we go forward into this year. But that is, sneak a peek is Thursday, November 11th, with the market opening 12th, 13th, and 14th of November. So we're really excited to have them back as well. So yeah, we've got a lot going on. It's good to see. If you have any other questions about events, and then of course, like I mentioned, Bob and Scott are here, and if you have any questions about the All-American coming up.
Any questions from the board? Thank you, Laura. We will move on to Fairgrounds Improvement Project, Stadium Mixed Use and Infrastructure Update. Mr. Henley or Mr. Gobble? Oh, Ms. Guevara. Sure, yeah, absolutely. So we will switch and do, Stadium first.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. I'll start with our headlines. The project remains on budget and on schedule. Work continues at the site, with focus on clearing the pitch by November. We continue to install seating, completing the northeast corner, and that's where the cranes had come into the stadium. They're also working on installing the remaining roofing materials, and support beams have been completed for both scoreboards. A significant amount of work is on the interiors, ranging from the locker rooms, concession stands, restrooms, suites. There's just a lot of activity on the site. Our September DBE report is not yet complete, but my estimate is that the DBE construction spend remains around 36%. We'll share the updated information when it's available. Another piece of information to share is that Mortensen Messer, working with Nashville Soccer Club and others, raised about $10,000 for school supplies for Fall Hamilton students. And then I will share photos at our next board meeting. I also wanted to provide a brief update on our work with Stand Up Nashville and our Community Advisory Committee. We are working on our next public committee meeting, which should be in November. When our committee meets later this week, we'll be able to get the details finalized and share the updated information. With the opening of the stadium next year, our focus is also on stadium jobs. We're trying to focus on connecting qualified Promise-Owned residents with these positions. I will also provide a brief update on the mixed-use activities. They are coordinating pre-construction logistics with the infrastructure team, stadium team, and fairgrounds personnel for utilities, access, deliveries, and haul routes. And this will be done similar to how we did it with the stadium, and there'll be updated neighborhood meetings to communicate the activities. There's limited subsurface activities ongoing for soil borings and structural design for Block C buildings and the garage. They expect to apply for building permits later this month and begin the site work. And as I mentioned, they'll provide regular updates to everyone as the project continues. And with that, if there's any questions.
Thank you, Mrs. Kavara. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, board, staff, council. This morning you should have dashboards in your packet. I'll be covering those. Just for everyone's information, I'd like to make sure that you know that what's being presented this morning is typically about 30 to 45 days in arrear of what actual activity has been occurring related to the projects that I'll be discussing. I'll start with the Fairgrounds improvement projects, start to work our way down. I know we had a lot of conversation last month and the month before about activities that were taking place in Expo 1, particularly related to the restroom area. Happy to report that a lot of that work has been completed. That billing and that cost is reflected on the budgets in front of you. And so while that work is not completely wrapped up and not completely billed for, there has been some activity in the first section of the budget dashboard reflecting that. Additionally, on the Expo building, on the maintenance building, a lot of progress has taken place. Some significant milestones have been achieved. We've completed pouring the slab out there. We've actually had a lot of the site work completed. Because of that, that's usually the most, risk potential in a project is that as that project has cleared that milestone, we have felt comfortable reducing some of the contingency that was placed in that budget. And so one thing you will notice from last month to this month is an increase to the FF&E budget. Again, staying true to our commitment to the fairgrounds, that as we work our way through these projects, making sure we clear certain hurdles and milestones, we will identify opportunities to replenish the FF&E budget. We definitely shrank it over the past few years as we worked our way through the overall campus projects. And so as we work our way through completion of construction, returning those funds to FF&E, continue to better support the facility. The other thing that you will notice as we work our way, the multi-purpose building, We've cleared about 33% now that reduced line item. I think we're a little bit further than that, but like I said, 30 to 45 days. The erection of the building will begin to really start to take shape, take form, and then you'll have the interior build out. And so looking forward to that project, one that's been delayed, of course, by COVID and other factors, actually approaching completion here in the coming months. Other than that, there's not been a lot of movement in terms of dollars spent on the project. Those have been the two major areas of having construction services. If there's no questions about the Fairgrounds improvement projects, I'll transfer and go over to Fair Park. Talk there from a budgetary standpoint. There is a presentation about Fair Park from an overall project standpoint. Seeing none, Chair, I'll move forward. Fair Park Phase 1, there's been no movement over the past 30 days since presenting to the board. They're in that category, so there's no movement reflected here. And then Fair Park Phase 2, while there has been a lot of movement, particularly related to the project management and design teams, we've had kickoff meetings. We started to look at preliminary schedules, and as you'll hear, preparation for the construction manager to join the team in the near future is being made. But we've yet to eclipse an invoicing cycle that has been submitted and paid. And so therefore, those dollars aren't represented in the budget presented this morning, but just wanted to make sure everyone's aware of those activities. Any questions related to Fair Park, Phase 1 or Phase 2? No? Okay. Ron?
Good morning, everybody.
Hold on just one second.
Mike?
When in doubt, plug it in. I have a question about Fair Park Phase 1. Let me try it now. There you go. This also has a mind of its own. So you said there hadn't been any work completed in 30 days. Can you just speak to where that stands in terms of moving forward and just the reason that nothing had been done for the previous 30 days? Thank you.
So related to Fair Park Phase 1, we've actually reached a point where we're not doing any additional work. In preparation for Fair Park Phase 2, in coordination with Stormwater and our actual renaturalization work, that's what our preparation is for now. So there was no intention of work being done and then there being a holdup or any type of issue.
So that would lead me to one more question. I see that it's 97% complete and that there's costs of $219,000 and change to do whatever needs to be done. If it's complete, then what happens to that money?
So those dollars were set aside for scope that was intentionally delayed.
Okay.
To be either funds combined with Fair Park Phase 2, and or potential operating costs that we may see fit. I know there's been a conversation about additional items placed in the area that currently just has a picnic shelter program in that space, making it more efficient parking space, as well as some shade opportunities. So those dollars had just been contemplated for other uses, but not utilized until we, of course, completed the core of the park.
Thank you so much.
So I should leave it on.
Good morning. First thing I'd like to do is introduce Tim DeBuse. I think some of you know him, but Tim is a project manager in our firm. He's been with us for several years. He's a licensed architect, and he's been handling a lot of these projects, so I thought it'd be good if you could meet him, and he'll summarize everything, and then I'll wind up with Phase 2 of Fair Park. So Tim?
Thank you, Ron. Good morning, everyone. So I want to give you a brief update on a couple of projects that you see happening. The maintenance multipurpose building that Ed was talking about earlier, that is now in the framing process. The metal building supplies arrived this week. So that is starting to go up, and they expect to have it enclosed within 2 weeks. And then I would expect within 4 to 6 weeks, Laura, and I know David is anxious to move in, we'll be able to turn it over to Laura and her staff to utilize that as kind of the last piece of the Expo project. The other component I wanted to give you a brief update on is the infrastructure project that you see happening throughout the entire campus. And I just wanted to explain, you may be wondering why things are happening in all different components of the site. And the reason for that is to expedite the construction as much as possible. Bell Construction is doing a great job of taking advantage of areas where they can advance the construction out of sequence so that they can do everything they can to meet the deadline of next year. Along with that, you will start to see steel coming for the new bridge over Browns Creek. You will continue to see activity as we extend Benton past the new stadium and as it curves down and meets into Wedgwood. And we are also, you may not see it, but there's a lot of activity on the western portion of the site, just west of the construction trailers, where they're putting in water and sewer lines to hook into the new soccer stadium. That's one of their priorities right now, is to make sure we stay ahead of the soccer project. But they're doing a great job. I think there's good cooperation amongst all the contractors. We have a scheduling coordination meeting every 2 weeks with the stadium contractors, infrastructure, and multipurpose, and all teams are working very well together. Thanks, Ron.
So that brings us back to phase 2 of Fair Park. To remind everybody, when Fair Park was first started, I think in 2016 and 2017, the concept was that we would do all of that from Bransford all the way to Nolensville Pike, but funding would not allow that. So phase 2 was established. It was essentially designed at that point, but that was prior to the envision of relocating the expo buildings and the soccer stadium and other modifications to the master plan. So we were able to take the same design team and put it all together. Their documents are going to be revised. The first priority of this effort is the stormwater mitigation for Browns Creek. Some components of that have already been done. They were done when we built this building and some other buildings around, as well as the infrastructure project. So our goal is to get that done. Our goal is to get the extension of the greenways to go all the way to Nolensville Pike from phase 1 of Fair Park. The limits of phase 2 is from the Craighead crossover, that entrance to phase 1 right there off of Craighead, all the way up to Nolensville Pike. So it's quite a long ways. And then we're in the process of trying to have a construction manager on board early in 2022. We're going to focus initially on getting the stormwater mitigation done in compliance with the stormwater variance that's coming up in 2022. So I think we've got it going, we've got it budgeted, it's funded, and we're moving along. It'll be it's a parks project, but they've worked the same kind of MOU that you had on phase 1 to phase 2 to where it's working through the Fairgrounds project. So with that, any questions on any of the projects?
Thank you, Ron.
Okay.
All right, we will move on now to Bristol Motor Speedway update.
Well, I guess that's you and I. The city is still working through the details of the financing. As I've said the last several meetings. As you know, it's a complex proposal, and we continue to touch base with BMS outside of that, and, you know, we wait for the city's decisions on the financing.
Yes, we've just been providing whatever information they need in the meantime, and holding off on negotiating any details until we know what the structure of the deal looks like, because it will affect the kind of agreements that we're entering into. Are there any questions?
I just wanted to recognize, I appreciate the mayor's office sitting down with individual fair board members just to have some open dialogue about the situation. So
Sure.
really appreciate that. And I guess one of the comment I would make, because I'm seeing the ongoing astroturfing by Bristol's team on some topics and planting articles, and there's a message being sent that they're being held to some higher standard than soccer. But I just would note that I haven't seen one detail in that regard. In fact, I just haven't seen an awful lot from Bristol yet, like that Speedway Motorsports is going to fully guarantee the debt, like the soccer team did for their stadium. Kind of an important detail. So I think certainly this thing could speed up a lot if Speedway Motorsports would step up and be financially responsible instead of spending a lot of money planting articles in the Tennessean that are saying things that just aren't true. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Bergeron. Sherry, did you have any questions? Okay.
I will, if it's okay, I'll draw your attention. In your packets is an expanded sound map that was provided by the acoustical engineering company that Bristol Motor Speedway hired as part of the sound study. So originally, the maps that were provided, I kind of guesstimated that it was approximately about a half a mile, maybe a little bit wider radius. And the request by board members was to kind of expand that view a little bit. And so this is an expanded 2-mile view. There has been a request to have a similar map for the other scenarios that were presented in the first sound study. I've made that request verbally. I talked to Mr. Caldwell yesterday, and I'll be following up on email just to make sure that it's very clear what the request is for the other scenarios, as well as clarifying some details in the title and the explanation of what each map is technically measuring. So stay tuned for additional information coming on the sound study.
I have a question. Actually, it's a request. When they're giving us updated maps, I would like to see a map that shows points north, south, east, and west that gives actual intensity level readings at the times that we would have average racing occurring.
Okay, repeat.
And that could be at the property line.
Could you just repeat that one more time? Make sure I get it.
Okay, so points north, south, east, and west within a mile radius. They can do 2 miles if they want. But I want to see the actual DBA readings, the intensity level readings at a property line during times that we would actually be having a race. I think that that will give people some semblance of comfort to know what to expect as compared to what we have today during those same racing times. Thanks.
Excellent, then we will move on to community, oh, sorry,
One quick thing. So this is somewhat related. I owe Mr. Sargent an apology. As you all know, I emailed you, I think yesterday, I failed to put an agenda item on this agenda to extend Track Enterprises 2022 racing contract. That is an oversight on my part. So I'm hoping that we can schedule a meeting certainly before November. I know Bob would appreciate that. It's timely because the sanctioning bodies and some of the more high-profile races are looking to solidify their schedules. The one in particular we are concerned about at this point is SRX. And that was an extremely popular event for us. We got fantastic TV coverage nationally, and it just was a very high profile event to have here, and it was really great. So to help satisfy SRX and to nail down a date for that race for 2022, that is the urgency that I'm going to be asking for a special meeting to make sure that we consider that extension. Bob, I didn't know if you had anything to add. Are we good? So he was just saying that it is scheduling related with SRX, with NASCAR. They're working through a lot of schedules. And I will mention, since we're talking about scheduling, we're right in the midst of working with Nashville SC and their team on scheduling for next year. And I think it's going fantastic. I hope Mary thinks so too. I think maybe we were both a little bit nervous going into the process since we had never done it before, but it is working out really, really well. We're finding that we have a much more flexibility in order to accommodate our events as needed, as well as soccer games. So we're really encouraged by the progress that we've made so far, and we continue to have those discussions so that they can solidify their schedule later this year, beginning of next year.
That's great. So next steps for a special meeting, we'll just send an email.
Right, we'll poll everyone, their availability, make sure that we obviously have a quorum and get that on the books. And that would be then the only agenda item for that meeting.
Okay. Any questions or comments about that? All right, then we will move on to community impact Speedway policy discussion and consideration. Mr. Bergeron.
Thanks. I really just have one item, maybe one and a half. I think we're still waiting on more information on the sound study pieces, and I've asked for some clarification because it appears possible to me that some of the maps may be counting the impact of mufflers twice, and that's something I'm looking for clarification on, and I think we may need but to Commissioner Wiener's point, we need good, accurate information just so there's transparency, especially when Bristol is just sending out mailings saying all racing noise will decrease by 50%. Their own sound studies don't even say that, and that's unfortunate. We need to be clear and honest. But I think when we start to zoom out, what we see it's complicated, and it's not a reason one way or the other to do this or not to do this, but it's complicated. And I think what that highlights is the main topic I want to discuss again, which is sound wall alone is not going to be a mitigation solution. And so we need to continue to discuss the other things that matter, curfews, clear limits around corporate and CVB events. And just a note again, as we see downtown issues escalating day by day with the tourism industry, we need to know what the Commissioner of Visitors Bureau's plan is for their piece in this. And I again renew my request that Butch Spiriton should have to appear at this meeting. But you know, the item I really want to talk about today is track rentals. I'm seeing the messaging being put out on the street that Bristol is going to reduce track rentals from 60 to 20. Well, that's not accurate. This Fair Board has already reduced track rentals to 25. But, you know, when we did that, the discussions we had were that was a way station, or at least that's the message I was trying to bring to the community, that we were going to try to continue to get that down. And those reduction efforts have been hampered by two things: by the pandemic and which has hampered our renewal options on the current racing contract. And then also the presence of Bristol, where we've kind of not been able to make any long-term contractual decisions. And, you know, so as we head into this renewal, we'll have some more discussion with Mr. Sargent about this. But, you know, again, I would welcome discussion about the level of track rentals. The same discussion I had with the mayor's office last week. 20 track rentals is not a solution, is not an acceptable solution for the future, and it's not viable, and it's not you know, in the community's interest in a fair, balanced package. And you know, I think we need to continue to talk about these, you know, the realities of these events that make no money, $300 per track rental for Metro, and are disruptive and are not necessary. And, you know, so would love to have some discussion about the realities of getting that track rental level down where it needs to be, under 15, depending on the number of race weekends we have overall. And sort of aligning on the board on that important priority.
Thank you. I want to back up a little bit to the CVB. I shared those concerns and also want to know more about what their proposal is. It's been very vague thus far, and we have asked questions, but are just awaiting more information about the structure of that deal. And the same goes for track rentals. Like, to be honest, because we don't even know what kind of deal we are entering into yet, we're in a holding pattern with that. We have all that information, and obviously you will be consulted, and we will have public conversations about that leading in. I just wanted to reassure you that that's, you know. Do you have anything to add to that, Laura? Okay.
Absolutely. I think that it's a conversation that I'm happy to have today or during the special meeting next week. You know, we may be limited in what we can do with the extension, but I think in recognition of what the understanding had been, I mean, the contract we signed under the current agreement was always going to be a one-year agreement that we were going to take a look at. And so, you know, I would look to Mr. Sargent to you know, honor the spirit of that and honor the community's requests, and at least you know, voluntarily agreeing to continue to move in the direction we need to be going in, which is moving, you know, down under 20 next year for track rentals. This has been a long overdue adjustment and evolution into the current time, and it's important that we keep that top of mind and the need to do that.
Anything else? Then Laura, we will move on to divisional fair update.
So we posted the event services manager for the divisional fair, and I'm happy to report that we got 40 applications. We are in the process of scheduling some interviews, and I'm really excited. I think we've got some good potential in the pool. So we will be, I think so far most of them have been scheduled for Friday, and then we should be making a decision very quickly.
Any questions? All right, then we will move on to new business and the consideration of fees.
All right, that is me. In your packets, now this is a topic that we discussed last month. Flea Market gave a wonderful presentation about market spread and reviewed with you some of the fee changes that we wanted to make in regards to the market. Some of these are, many of them are just clarifications to our dealers that tax is required on certain purchases. Things like our FF&E that is rented, tables and chairs, pipe and drape. Those are all taxable items, and so we wanted to make sure in our fee table that we reflected that, so it's very clear that it's not just a $10 or $5 fee. We did add pipe and drape now that we have gotten rid of our probably 20, 30-year-old drape and got new black, and we thought maybe that would be an opportunity for our dealers to improve their booth spaces if they so desire by putting up pipe and drape. So we just added that fee. Our RV parking spaces are taxable, so we have clarified that item as well. We have also changed a little bit how we process business licenses and sales tax. And again, I want to thank Satrice for her leadership on this, as well as the work by the flea market office. This is not an easy topic to kind of wrap your head around of what our responsibilities are under state law, Department of Revenue, when it comes to business licenses and tax, but I think we have it figured out. So we actually are no longer going to be processing certificates of registration here at the fairgrounds because there's an online portal right through the state for people to do that. They are actually supposed to take care of that in their home counties where their business is. And then if anyone does come in from out of state, we can help guide them through establishing a business license here. And then we also have a city business license, and that is $2 a day. So there's obviously some consideration for volume of sales if somebody is just doing this on a monthly basis and they have a very small dollar amount of sales, or this is a full-fledged business. And so that decision on whether or not what kind of business license they have certainly falls to them and their responsibility based on their business. But we will continue to offer that fee in lieu of taxes for $2 a day. So it's a $2 charge for their whatever booth space that they rent for the number of days that they are open for business. So most of our vendors do take advantage of our 3-day market, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so it'd be a $6 fee. If they do choose to do Saturday and Sunday only, of course, that would be a $4 fee. There is also some processing fees and 1% for technology recovery. And so we'll be adding that. Again, this is just some fees to offset additional staff time. While we're not making the decision to go fully cashless, it is very beneficial to us, and we hope much easier for our dealers to be able to register and pay online. We have a very secure payment portal that is available on Market Spread so that our vendors can go in and make credit card or debit payments right online. That is very helpful for us from an accounting standpoint because it is deposited in the bank, coded, everything is done digitally. It's processed much quicker, and it reduces human error, of course, when we are processing deposits, whether that be cash or check. We have eliminated acceptance of personal checks. Those have caused, while not widespread, issues with non-sufficient funds, return checks, and that just can be challenging for our accounting. So we have eliminated that. We will still accept money orders or cashier's checks, which some dealers have taken advantage of. And there will be cash payments available as well. But needless to say, that takes a lot more time and administrative effort to process those types of payments, to reconcile them, to get them to the bank deposited and such. And so that $5 processing fee helps to offset that. And then we've got some kind of deterrence fees, just to make sure that we are not discouraging no-shows, essentially. If a vendor does register for a flea market, you know, we count on them being there in that booth. We do have a waiting list of new vendors that we want to get in here, and if a vendor doesn't show up, we could have rented that booth. So it's really important for everyone to mind our new registration windows, which is very helpful to the office because it sets a defined 1-week period in which our vendors can register and pay for their booths. We know a good 2.5 weeks in advance what our load is going to look like, what our occupancy rate is going to look like for that month. And then what it also allows is for them to be out and about during the market. They're not confined to the office accepting payments, and you know, they're able to go out and see the vendors face to face and engage with them much more frequently during the market. And I believe that has been very helpful for them, for our dealers, and they can do a lot of face-to-face education and interaction during the market itself. So we do, anytime we have like unexpected cancellations or we have late payments by vendors, that takes extra time and effort to go ahead and rebook them after cancellations. And then of course the no-shows are not good for the market as a whole. So these are the fees that you saw last month, and wanted certainly to give a little bit of time to kind of process these and have you consider them today in a vote.
Chair, I have a question.
Sure.
Laura, one thing you noted here was that it's a $2 a day fee for the city business license. Is that revenue neutral insofar as the amount of time that it takes our staff to process that? I know you have the other $5 processing fee, but does that apply to this? And is that $2 fee sufficient to manage the staff time that it takes to process that? Or is that something that they should be doing on their own as well?
No, that fee is actually set by the state of Tennessee Department of Revenue. We're unable to make money off a fee that the state charges. So that is a set fee that we cannot adjust. We asked that question as well to see if there was an offset to labor, and no. So, Satrice, did I forget anything? Okay, yeah.
So is that something that we should necessarily be doing here, or letting them get that online as well?
Satrice, she probably remembers this conversation with the state better than I can about why we kept the $2 responsibility with us. But we do pass on all that revenue. That goes back to the state, I believe, through the clerk's office.
Yes.
So are we doing that as a service to the folks that are going to be here as vendors? Or is that something that, since they're already going online to work with the state, that they could just do all of it, and it would be one less thing our staff needs to handle?
We actually considered having them do that as well. However, we wanted to gather the data to see how it would affect our vendors and how many out-of-state vendors we had. And so before making that decision, we wanted to at least collect the data to see how many vendors would be affected.
The out-of-state vendor piece is important in this because not everybody who comes in from out of state realizes that those rules apply. And so this is a catch-all because ultimately by state law, it is our responsibility to make sure our vendors have all the licenses and registrations that they need. So we thought it prudent to keep that in place, especially for our out-of-state vendors, since they just might not be aware of the requirement. That way we fulfill our responsibility under state law, and then they are also protected because they've gotten their business tax.
Well, I'll go ahead and make a motion to adopt the updates to the Nashville flea market rate and fee table.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Excellent. That concludes our meeting for the day. And just be on the lookout for that schedule request.
Chair, I move to adjourn.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Councilman Bradford is here. He wanted to make sure to meet you after the meeting and introduce himself. Councilman Bradford is here. He would like.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.net.